This video is brought to you by Aaron Clary, author of The Curse of the High IQ, all of our wonderful fans on Patreon, and viewers like you. Thank you.
The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
We're about 10 days out from Solo, a Star Wars story, and the behind-the-scenes drama has been well documented for many months. Old directors fired and a new old director hired. Kathleen Kennedy sucks, blah blah freaking blah. While old Kath and those at Lucasfilm can control the media's narrative on the situation, there's one group they can't control completely, the fans. The Wall Street Journal put out an article titled, "Intrigue and Drama on the Han Solo Set." In it, writer Ben Fritz goes into what is the most detailed analysis of the situation. I'll spare you a reading, but I'll link you to the article because it's worth checking out. The who, the what, the where, the when, and the why is Gamora of the video is the comments section. It's not a cesspool of trash, memes, and asking if traps are gay. It's a series of well-thought-out and valid concerns from a group of people who don't fit into the narrative of your angry average white man. The shill media will have a hard time discrediting these comments as anything but valid. Yeah, most complaints are from men, but they're not white. And just listen to the names. The shills will also have trouble labeling them as alt-right Nazis. How do I know this? Well, these comments come from people with digital subscriptions to the Wall Street Journal. And I did a little research. You know, the things shills don't, and I came up with this. According to AllSides.com, the Wall Street Journal has a bias rating of center. What does that mean? Well, when polled, it turns out that the Wall Street Journal doesn't lean to the left or to the right. It centers mostly in the middle, which is what you want in a situation like this. Oh, and on top of this, a paid subscription is required to comment. We all know trolls aren't willing to pay to bitch online. Oh, and speaking of money, Wall Street Journal readers have the highest household income according to MRI. The readers of Dow Jones and Company's The Wall Street Journal have the highest median annual income of $135,740 among print publications according to Media Mark Research and Intelligence's MRI Fall 2009 report, which was released this week. Obviously, this article's from the past. But that doesn't really matter. Oh, and speaking of the highest median income, these are the highest paying jobs in the US according to CNBC. Not exactly basement dwellers. So with all that out of the way and the shills scrambling, let's look at some of these comments. This one comes from Ray Lore. Star Wars 4 through 6 held a magic for me. The series was well acted, mostly well written, with great special effects and cinematography. Beginning with Star Wars Episode 1, the series lost its magic, becoming another space movie, but was still interesting. The writing has continually declined, and Rogue One was the worst writing I've experienced to date. Fortunately for Disney, they still have an audience. I won't be in it. This comes from Michael Chan. I'm interested in watching the new Solo movie. Hopefully, Disney won't ruin it like the last two Star Wars movies, excluding Rogue One, which was acceptable. Having Ron Howard redo 70% of the movie doesn't sound so good, but let's see the movie first before casting any judgment. Disney needs to fire Miss Kennedy and two particular directors for ruining the Star Wars franchise. If they wanted to create newer characters and storylines, it should have done so without ruining the original Star Wars characters. Let the original characters have a decent ending. Mr. Ford wanted Solo out, so that was done. Mr. Hamill's old Luke was an abomination compared to the younger self. Let's see how they put Miss Fisher's Leia in the final movie. Hopefully some of the extended universe EU stuff can be salvaged, but don't bet on it. Miss Kennedy was quoted in some media articles of hating Mara Jade and other EU stuff. Bonnie Sanchez, a woman, says this. YouTube momentum is picking up to boycott watching Solo on opening week. The Force Awakens with its Mary Sue hero ruined it for me so much that I refused to watch Rogue One in theaters, although it was actually a good movie once I saw it on cable. I recently saw The Last Jedi on Amazon with my kids, and we all laughed at the Leia Poppin scene. We all agreed it was a terrible movie in my house. Star Wars is episodes 1 through 6 plus Rogue One. Harris Smith said, "The problem? Kathleen Kennedy screeching hysterically that there isn't enough extreme leftist SJW nonsense in her already failing films." He goes on to say that SJW Kathleen Kennedy strikes again. Kennedy is incompetent and keeps proving it. How much more money, fans, franchises will Disney have to lose before they do something? Jake Wilhelm said, "The drop-off in quality from Rogue One to The Last Jedi was something to behold." Andrew Bomer says, "Seriously, episodes 1 through 3 were able to be followed. I hated the acting, and any time you throw a kid or too much CGI in a film, it's going to have its problems. Rogue One was enjoyable. Jedi made me shake my head about what they were even trying to accomplish with the film. Entertainment? Social commentary? It seemed like it was written and directed by two different crews." Jose Gutierrez said, "I love Star Wars. But now that we're getting an episode every year to rake in our money, and the stories are not going to get any better. I would have skipped Solo at least at the cinema, but my friends are making me go. I plan on watching it at least once at home." Dustin Rouge says, it's hard to read this article and not wonder. 1. Do the Rotten Tomato experts, 85%, have any credibility left, and are they truly unbiased when the moviegoers had such a dramatically different interpretation of The Last Jedi? 2. Why has Disney let so many colossal failures take place under the #1 franchise brand and still keep Miss Kennedy in charge of it? 3. How many hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars will be lost by Disney by releasing The Last Jedi to the movie theaters when if it was released under any other name, it would have been laughed out of its initial screening room? 4. How many people who love the Star Wars brand will now refuse to view any subsequent Star Wars movies in theaters out of sheer protest to how the franchise has been handled by Miss Kennedy and Disney? David Collier chimed in with, I fall under your 4th bullet point. I refer to each new Star Wars movie as the search for more money, and refuse to see any of them despite being a huge fan of the originals. It's a pretty good Spaceball reference there, David. Daniel Brown goes on to say that 1. Rotten Tomatoes experts lost credibility for me with The Last Jedi, and when many of the bad reviews for Death Wish were simply because it showed gun violence and was released shortly after the Parkland shooting. 2. It comes down to the money. I think your tenure is close to an end, given how disastrous the community relationship has become. Disney isn't making nearly as much as they would on these movies given all the reshoots, editing, etc. 3. Time will tell, but at this rate, it will take them more than a decade to break even unless they figure out how to change course. 4. There are already large boycotts starting for the future movies as long as Kennedy and co. remain in charge of the films. Unfortunately for them, by pandering to the extreme left to get a new audience who really don't care about the movies to begin with, they are losing their core, where the more reliable revenue comes for future films, merchandise purchasing, which has already plummeted, etc. We've really covered that here on World Class Bullshitters. Robert Simpson stated, after Episode 8, all Star Wars movies now have a wait-and-see approach. Helmut Kobler said, I agree that The Last Jedi was garbage, but didn't think JJ did much better with The Force Awakens. It was shocking to see a rehash of the original Star Wars almost completely derivative and felt like plastic to me. I'm looking forward to see what Ron Howard does, though. A grown adult at the helm would be nice. Travis Branham says, I'm so tired of Star Wars, you can't coast on nostalgia forever. There are many good sci-fi and fantasy stories out there that would make a great film, but they just keep beating this old dead horse. Russell Brewer said, Disney will water it down to the point of rendering Han Solo unrecognizable, to which Richard Travis responded with, not to worry, Ron Howard is a top-notch director. Bringing him in probably saved this project. Carrie Goringe said, right, but even Howard has his limits, working with this botched script and extra footage. Ingmar Bergman had it right when he said, if you have to save a film in the cutting room alone, you're in trouble. Jay Siegel said, if this is another J.J. Abrams piece of mindless junk movie, I will not see it. His other and memorable movies are all special effects with storylines that made no sense and had no continuity, that were only designed to support those special effects, with characters about which we couldn't care. Please spare us. Alexander Labar said, 4 words, flying Jedis in space, stood up, walked out, and never looked back. Daniel Brown also came back to say it's amazing how 2 different franchises at Disney can operate. Marvel, focus on writing a script both the director/producer, studio will like, as well as getting feedback from fans during the process, ultimately resulting in a product everyone enjoys. LucasArts, I think he meant Lucasfilm, put themselves in a bubble, hire people who admittedly don't know anything about the history of Star Wars and its lore, publicly admit that they just wrote what they wanted to see and didn't care for feedback, and that their objective was to kill off the old characters to focus on new social-political motivation, and finally, deny that any criticism is warranted, and if you didn't like the film, you're a racist, sexist, bigot, etc. I wonder which one has been more broadly successful. And our final comment again comes from Daniel Brown. The sad thing is that they're so desperately trying to prove that The Last Jedi is popular, the StarWars.com website created a poll for what's people's favorite movie out of the 9 made so far, and The Last Jedi was magically 35 to 40%. Now that it has fallen to 15%, they no longer highlight the poll on their homepage. Thank you, Ethan. I was so excited to introduce my children to Star Wars, showing them the original trilogy. They also enjoyed The Force Awakens, which I was willing to tolerate even though it has flaws. However, I refuse to voluntarily show them The Last Jedi, even more so than the prequels, though if they ask to see it, I will let them watch it. I'm not that vindictive. The disrespect given to the original films, even changing the fundamental philosophy of the Force, was painful to watch, let alone the inability to write a coherent story in general. What makes me the happiest about all of this is the fact that the statistics about Wall Street Journal readers shoot holes in all the defenses made by the shill media. It's not angry white men, it's not even all men. It's not all basement dwellers and nerds. It's people with good jobs and families who grew up Star Wars fans and aren't happy with Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm. It's as simple as that. There are no more excuses to be made. There's no more deflection, no more puff pieces by too poor to afford rent in whatever overpriced trendy waste of space city they choose to reside in because they studied trombone in college. The Scott Mendelsons of the world have all been shut up because now we have comments from people who don't fit with the all-too-easy-to-sweep-under-the-rug narrative of angry white men. No points dinged for gender, no points dinged for inclusivity. Just people tearing apart movies because their stories absolutely suck! Thank you, Rock. We need to get this video out in front of as many people as possible to shoot down the shill media's defense. They're losing, and hopefully, this can be the final nail in their coffins. Stop making it about race and gender and representation. We're not. We're tired of bad stories, bad merchandise, and bad Star Wars. The numbers don't lie, and you people, yeah, I said you people, are on the wrong side of history. So let me know what you think about this. Normally we would make a video like this and call it Comment Slam. Really pay attention to what those people criticized. The first person to bring up the phrase Mary Sue was a woman. I don't want to hear how it's only sexist men that critique Rey. These subscribers of the Wall Street Journal digital service didn't like the new Star Wars movies. And you can go through and read all the comments yourself. There were about 50. I'm not going to sit and read all 50 comments. This would be a 45-minute video on comments, and I would be falling asleep. It probably would never come out because it would be so goddamn boring. And I didn't really cherry pick ones that go against Disney Star Wars. On average, I'd say it was 75% I don't like what they're doing with Star Wars. So you should all go and check out the article. It's well written. I didn't hate it. I think this Ben guy's a decent writer, and I would never call him a Star Wars shill. If you go back and look at the history of articles he's written, they're all pretty center. And that's why I brought up that political thing in the beginning, to see where the allegiance of the Wall Street Journal lies, because that's very important in today's entertainment reporting. You know that a good number of these critics, and I'm using the quotations here, that gave The Last Jedi such a high score, weren't really worried about the film proper. They were worried about the ideology behind it and the weirdness that is Rian Johnson. You know, when I argued against Disney Star Wars being good against Brown Table, his main points were the movies are inclusive and that makes them good. Inclusivity is fine when the story's great, but the story here was garbage. The Force Awakens story was a New Hope, but poorly done. The Last Jedi story wasn't necessarily even a story, it was just a bunch of shitty scenes that ripped out iconic moments from Empire and Jedi, put them up on a screen, and has damaged the fan base irreparably. I can say it every day of the week, and it ain't gonna change. Star Wars is in a bad place. And you can see that these people on the internet that defend Star Wars, that are looking for a handout or access to a movie or something like that, they're going to defend this and fall on the sword for Star Wars. But there are a lot of channels like mine that aren't putting up with this shit. Now, some make humorous videos, some yell at their cameras, and some of us like me bring you facts and statistics to back up my argument. We're not on the wrong side of history here, folks. If anything, pardon this shitty comparison, but it's like we're the Rebel Alliance and they're the Empire, and when we come together, we can defeat them. Let's just keep on track with critiquing modern Star Wars the way we are. Don't threaten anyone, don't attack anybody, but what you need to do is attack points. So if some shill critic comes out with a video, break it down why their points are invalid. It's called debate. You study it in college. I studied it in college. It's what modern society is built on. Ideas, different ideas, how to make your ideas stick, how to persuade people. It's all very important. And right now, it's important to save entertainment, not just to save Star Wars, but all of entertainment. These weird ideologies that people can read between the lines and see are invading everything. The comic book industry is ruined. They tried it with video games, but enough people fought back and they just cut that shit out. And we could do it here in movies if we really worked together. It's not about putting one down to raise yourself up. It's about coming together, breaking down the opposing side, and really making progress and helping people see things. You don't have to lie, you don't have to threaten. All you have to do is bring up articles like this. Well-to-do people who criticize a story. You know what's funny is when people criticize other stories or other works of media, there is not so much of a hubbub against it. But Star Wars thinks it's insulated from this, and so this army of shills or drones or whatever you want to call them come out in defense of Disney and Lucasfilm and try to just shut down the people. They don't even try to shut down the points, they just shut down the people. And that's really bad debating. So do your part, share this video everywhere you can, and let people see that it's everyday average Americans, actually some better-to-do Americans, that are having these problems. Movies like The Last Jedi don't really play well to the middle of the country, and I'm using the phrase middle America very loosely here, but your average everyday person doesn't care about the animal rights activism of Rian Johnson, whatever he's trying to say or, fail at doing. People just wanted a good, action-packed, fun Star Wars movie, and that's why The Force Awakens was able to dupe a lot of people, because they just saw explosions and Han Solo, and their hearts wept with nostalgia. And then The Last Jedi failed on so many levels. We're not even going to see the damage done for another year and a half. When Episode 9 comes out, that's when we'll see the backlash actually hit Disney. It's funny, too, that you would think that they would try to harness the goodwill of the fans and bring the community together when they're trying to launch a streaming service, with Jon Favreau headlining with a Star Wars series. You'd think that they would try to unify the fans when there's going to be Disney World attractions or Disneyland attractions. I don't even know which park is which. Disney theme park attractions, Star Wars hotels, full-size Millennium Falcons. You'd think with all of these things that Disney would want Lucasfilm to get everyone they can in. But there's this schism, this huge fracturing of the fan base. There's a movement online of people boycotting Solo: A Star Wars Story. Me personally, I wouldn't say boycott Solo, I'd say boycott Episode 9. Because Solo is too far, it's done. The world has seen it, and I don't know any of the spoilers, so I'm not going to put them in this video. But the movie's done. It's too early to try to hurt that movie. People need to really build up the boycotting for Episode 9. Every time an article comes out, don't get excited. Let Disney know about your intentions of not seeing this film. Make a statement. Don't just fall in line with the Solo hate. If the movie sucks, I'll be the first one to say it. But I can't say a movie sucks until I've watched it, so I have to be honest. But let me know what your plans are for Star Wars. Let me know what your thoughts are on this article, and just let me know you're watching. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. Click the thumbs up for a like, and make sure you hit the bell notification to know when our videos go live. If you're a super fan of this channel, and it's not too much to ask, check out our Patreon page. Support us over there. We give you access to tons of digital content, a show after our podcast called World Class Bullshitters After Hours, tons of commentaries, and they're not just basic commentaries. They're commentaries where we start out with a 20-minute roundtable discussion discussing the film at great lengths. This week we did Blade. We talked about the societal importance of the black superhero and how Black Panther's been overblown. We also have the James Bond commentaries, as well as a lot of other fun things. We even talk about this little series called the Joker Blogs, which more will be coming out on that later. But if you can't afford it, not a problem. Just subscribe and watch our videos and tell everyone you can about us. The battle against Star Wars is never ending at this point. And that's okay, because nothing easy is ever worthwhile.